facing a hard time in dealing with the after effects of the Enor oil spill. Fishermen told us that they are facing problems only after they started working in the cleanup operation.
They all reported symptoms of acute toxicity like eye, nose, throat irritation, and also some of them had cough and chest tightness, and even some school students, they experienced some nausea, vomiting and headache.
Island போனேன் ஒரு நாளைக்கு 400 ரூபாய் இருக்கு கூலி. 400 ரூபாய் கூலி வாங்கி நடத்தல தண்ணிங்களாம் போய் எடுத்து காண முடியல. என்ன அதனால் மறுநாள் போனேன். இன்னும் மறுநாள் அதே மாதிரி 400 கூலி வாங்கினேன். என்னால் முடியல. அப்புறம் ரெண்டு ஆஸ்பத்திரிக்கு போயிட்டு பண் பார்க்க அங்கே போய் பார்த்தேன். நம்பர் எனக்கு எழுத்து காட்டினாங்க. சில எழுத்து கேட்டு சில எழுத்து தெரியும்.
ஸ்கின் அலர்ஜி கொஞ்சம் அரிச்சலாக இருக்குது.
என்ன ஸ்கின் அலர்ஜி?
ஸ்டோன்லாம் ஒயிட்டாக ரொம்ப எரிச்சலாக இருக்குது. வேறு
ஆயில். ஆனால் உங்களுக்கு இதை பற்றி ஏதாவது சொன்னாங்களா?
எதுவுமே எக்ஸ்பிளைன் எதுவும் பண்ணல.
அப்போல்லாம் எந்த இதுவும் சேஃப்டியான இதுவெல்லாம் கொடுக்கவே இல்லை. இப்போ எல்லாமே கொடுக்குறாங்க. ஆனால் இப்போ எனக்கு நான் வேலை செஞ்சது ஒரு வாரமாக எனக்கு எங்களால் இப்போது கண்ணு எரிச்சலுது சமாளிக்க முடியல. உடம்பு அரிப்பு எடுக்குது. அதனால தான் இப்போ ரொம்ப போகாமல் நாங்கள் இருக்கிறோம்.
நெஞ்சு எரிச்சல், தலைவலி அந்த மாதிரி அப்போ ஒரு வேலையை முடிச்சுட்டு வந்த பிறகு ஜுரம் அடிச்சிருக்கு. அதனால் வெளியே ஹாஸ்பிட்டலில் போயிட்டு எனக்கு கம்மியான சம்பளம் கொடுக்குறாங்க. ஆனால் வெளியே ஹாஸ்பிட்டல் போயிட்டு 2000 3000 செலவு பண்ணியிருக்கோம். மறுபடியும் எங்கள் வருமானம் இந்த ஆயில் ஒதுங்கினதுனால எங்களுக்கு ஃபிஷர்மேன்லாம் வேறு இந்த ஆயில் ஒதுங்கினால மீன் வியாபாரம் எதுவும் இல்லைன்னு சொல்லிட்டு மறுநாள் போனோம்னா அதே மாதிரி அந்த பிரச்சனையை டெய்லியும் வந்துட்டு இருந்தது.
எங்கள் வீட்டிலேருந்து 3 பேர் போயிருக்காங்க. அவங்க ட்ரெஸ் எல்லாம் ஒரே ஆயிலாக இருக்குது. அவங்க எடுத்துகிட்டு வந்து எங்ககிட்ட போட்டாங்கன்னா அதை நாங்கள் துவைக்க போனோம்னா அந்த நெடி எங்களுக்கு ஒரு இரும்பல் தான் எங்களுக்கு. அவங்க அங்கேருந்து 400 ரூபாய்க்கு வாங்கிட்டு வந்தாங்கன்னா சேலரி, இவங்களுக்கு நாங்கள் ட்ரீட்மெண்ட் பார்க்கறதுக்கே கரெக்டாக இருக்குது. குழந்தைக்கே ஒத்துக்கல. சின்ன குழந்தை இருப்பாருங்க. அதுக்கு பின்னாடி அந்த ஆயில் பட்டு அப்படியே ரவுண்ட் ஆகிடுச்சு. அதுக்கு நாங்கள் 2000 ரூபாய்க்கு மேலே செலவு பண்ணிடுவோம். அவங்க அப்பா தூக்கி அது கொஞ்சம் போது அந்த ஆயில் பட்டு பின்னாடி பெரிய ரவுண்ட் ஆகிடுச்சு. அதை நாங்கள் இதுக்கு ட்ரீட்மெண்ட் பார்க்குறோம். ஆனாலும் சரியாகுது.
People who have been exposed to these chemicals not for 1 or 2 days but for a considerable period of time without any protective gear, they might experience cancer. They might get blood cancers like leukemia, skin cancer, lung cancer or bladder cancers. These are all proven.
Well, we've been saying this for a while, that everyone exposed to that toxic oil sludge was at risk, not just of the short-term eye irritation and the rashes that we're seeing develop now, but in the long term, there is considerable evidence. Even with the report that has been released by this fact-finding committee, there is considerable evidence to suggest that this sort of oil, exposure to this sort of toxic oil will lead to cancer. Still, nothing being done by the government in Chennai that has just now begun to take office after that extremely embarrassing public slugfest for power that we saw take place in that city. We would like the city of Chennai and its government to get back to work and take cognizance of the risk it has put its citizens under. A quick break and we'll come back and we'll find out how these people can be protected now and why the government is doing so precious little about it. That's on the other side. Our phone lines are open. Don't go anywhere. Well, this is the truth, viewers, that the people in Chennai who got into the water to help clean up are now at risk of various serious health hazards. The Magicbricks Now report on the issue has got the backing of a fact-finding team which has raised similar concerns. Our reporters went on the ground, spoke to fishermen who were part of the cleanup operation. They found out that these fishermen are currently struggling, not just with the fact that there aren't enough fish in the sea left because of that toxicity, but also because they're suffering from skin rashes, blurry vision, a tightness of their chest, all symptoms that we had predicted when they got into the water without any protective gear. Now, to make matters worse, we also understand that there is a school across the road from where this toxic oil had spilled, and there was no protection provided to those children, and now children are suffering. Still, somehow, the government in Tamil Nadu seems completely oblivious of the risk it had taken on and seems completely oblivious of its responsibility right now towards its own citizens. As a public service announcement, if you live in Chennai and you in any way came in contact with that oil, or there's someone you know who out of some sort of nationalism decided to go in and clean up the oil themselves, please have them meet a health professional or a doctor immediately. Joining me on the show this evening, Dr. Sanjeev Mehta, Pulmonologist from Leelavati in Mumbai. Dr. Amaran, a member of the Nodal Point organization that has actually done this fact-finding report, and one of the authors of the report. Stalin Dayanand is the project director at an NGO called Vanashakti. Dr. Sumanth C Raman will join us through the course of this conversation. He's a political commentator. Ramachandra Menon is a marine engineer. Debi Goenka is an environmentalist who will join us as well. G Sunder Rajan is an environmentalist who joins us in Chennai. I want to go first to Dr. Amaran. Dr. Amaran, tell us what you discovered in your report that has now been released.
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, the place wasn't cordoned off, and people had unrestricted access to the place.
Yes, Dr. Amaran, go ahead.
And also,
yes.
on the 10th day after the mishap, we still felt that there is a we still felt the strong odor of the oil, which means that it hasn't diluted yet. So after going through the road, we found out that there was tanks which were overfilling with the crude oil, and also there was discarded gloves and gumboots which were stained with the crude oil, and those gumboots and gloves were collected by the conservancy workers, which were totally unaware of the health impacts of the crude oil. And also they collected the gumboots and gloves with the normal waste, and they sent it to their collecting point. Also, we spoke to the firemen over there who said they were unaware of the health impacts of the crude oil, and also they were not given any personal protective equipment, which they were totally unaware that contact with the crude oil will cause skin irritation or inhalation, irritation of the nose, eyes and everything. And after that, we went to fisherman community and asked about that effects. So they said they weren't
informed. In fact, I'll come back to you, and I just want to read out of this report right now.
They weren't.
It says that there were 2,000 people involved in the cleanup. There were 20,000 people allowed on that beach without any sort of barricading, all of whom were exposed to the sludge. And it says that out of the fire rescue workers, the police personnel, the fishermen, none of these people, or even the municipality workers who were brought in to clean up, none of these people were given any sort of protective gear. They were given boots and they were given gloves. Dr. Sanjeev Mehta, we saw that on our screens, and despite repeated requests, we saw that not improve. And now there is evidence on the ground that these people are suffering from exposure. How bad? And you heard what was being told to our reporters. They said that they're having trouble breathing, that the children have skin rashes. They say the skin rashes are still burning them. Some of them have blurry vision. How bad do these symptoms sound to you?
They sound terrible, Faye, and this is what we've been saying for so long. You've been at it for some days now, and the worst fears are coming true. These poor children have got the immediate exposures, the skin, the eyes, and everybody will have that. What we need to do is also follow these exposed individuals for a long period of time. I wish that there was proactive care for these people. Many of these symptoms could have been abated by early warning, by follow-up. They were not done. Now,
what should be done now?
Couple of things. First of all, we need a whole team of doctors who are aware of what is happening to take care of these patients right away. That's one.
No, but even before we do that, and I'm going to go over to Stalin for this, shouldn't this fishing village be evacuated? Shouldn't it have been done a month ago? But shouldn't it be evacuated at least now if there are children and if there are people still exposed to this sort of risk?
I think it will be a little late to evacuate them now. They've already borne the brunt of it. The first step would be to get down an inventory of how many people are really who have been in contact with it and who are around a 1 kilometer radius of this oil spill. First of all, you need to document those figures and those names, and then go about doing whatever you want. First of all, you do not know what is your target affected people, so you need to first put down that list. And children, of course, definitely they should be monitored specially. There should be special attention focused to the elderly and the children in this part. But since they have been through all of it, I think it's almost now 3 weeks or more.
Yes.
So obviously they have faced the worst already.
Dr. Mehta?
Yeah, I feel they should be evacuated because apparently there is yet that smell and the toxic fumes are there. For a while they should be out, maybe about a month or so. That's one. Now we know that there is a large study going on in the US of people who are exposed to the BP oil exposure in the Gulf, and that's following up these people for something like 15 years. So it's not rocket science. All you need to do is find out the parameters that are being monitored. We need somebody to get in there, follow these people up and take care of them in the long term, in the short and long term.
I think basically right now, Debi Goenka, we need to talk about accountability. And this report begins by saying there has been and there continues to be a lack of accurate, reliable information put forth by the authorities on the quantum and the nature of the material that was spilled, essentially hindering cleanup operations and limiting our understanding to the health and environment risks. And Debi Goenka, if we've noticed anything over the last couple of months in Tamil Nadu, is that the government has very little interest in Tamil Nadu in actually looking after its citizens.
The reason for this actually is that all the agencies responsible are complicit and actually responsible for the accident. The MOEF should never have given permission for the expansion of the port without making sure that the disaster management plan and all the equipment that was required, which was part of the earlier environmental clearance, was actually put into place. We've discussed earlier how the state government was very late in responding to the crisis. For the first 48 hours, they did nothing.
Yes.
And I don't think any inquiry conducted by any government agency is going to lead us anywhere. Maybe it's necessary for a court-appointed commission to go into this and then take remedial measures. And at the end of the day, it is the poor people who have suffered. The villagers have got exposed. The fishing community has lost its livelihood. The fishing boats and nets have been damaged. The health is suffering. And I think this toxic buildup of pollutants will make situation worse. I think those people do need to be moved out and given immediate priority. And detoxification is also necessary to the extent possible.
Yeah, Mr. Menon, I want to point out here the fact that the report points out very clearly that the members of the Coast Guard had full gear. Nobody else was given gear. Is this some sort of preferential treatment here, which obviously means that the Coast Guard was aware of the kind of gear that was necessary in order to come in contact with any of this toxic sludge? So it was being selfish because it had the information. It just chose its people over everybody else.
Absolutely. If they had the gear, then why not provide? That means they were in a hurry without knowledge. They have tackled the situation. When Coast Guard is claiming that they had the gear ready, why should it be preserved? For what? For the next occasion, God forbid. And it is unanimous that there's delay in the action taken to curtail the spread of the oil to the shore, because of which that vapors have caused all these things. Mainly the vapors, the low molecular weight, like benzene and all that evaporate faster.
Yes.
Within no time, and that would have caused all these health hazards to all these poor people. Kudos to those people; they did the work, I believe so. But then it's pathetic that they're suffering so much because of negligence from the people concerned.
Stalin?
And it's a wake-up call for them, definitely.
I wouldn't agree with that, blaming the Coast Guard, because they are people who are trained to do a particular activity with their force. They have never called in these people. Ideally, this area should have been cordoned off and kept sanitized from any outside influence. But since they come in, they have done their part with whatever limited resources they could.
Two things have gone wrong. Two
the
things have gone wrong, Stalin. One is the report tells us very clearly that 20,000 onlookers were allowed on the site.
Exactly.
Secondly, it points out that the fisherfolk were not given a choice. They were made to work on the beach by force at 400 rupees a day.
Exactly.
That, I believe,
Exactly.
that is blood on the hands of the state government.
Definitely. The police is involved in this. The police is the one who's to take the responsibility. They were supposed to keep this area clean. And the very cause of all this mess is the lack of a scientist on any disaster management team. If there is a disaster, environmental disaster, a scientist has to be involved with whichever agency is tackling this issue. Only under his guidance should the further action be taken. But here, out of good faith, people have jumped into the mess and tried to help. So you can't, the Coastal Guard doesn't have power over the state governments. They are a central body.
Yes.
The police should have stepped in and kept that area free from any kind of interference.
Debi Goenka.
As I mentioned before on this show, the Coast Guard is the nodal agency supposedly in charge of all operations in the case of an oil spill. The fact of the matter is the Coast Guard itself did nothing for the first 48 hours. And because the Coast Guard took no action, the oil was allowed to spread. The Coast Guard has powers to take over...
So this is the Coast Guard's fault, Debi Goenka?
To begin with, yes. And secondly, the Coast Guard felt that trained people were required. They could have instructed the state government not to allow this cleanup to happen. Nothing is on record to show that the Coast Guard tried to stop the people getting involved and tried to do it themselves. In fact, earlier reports seem to indicate that the pumps that were deployed didn't work.
We should also point out the fact that we have national agencies. We have an environment ministry, a national environment ministry that did not step in. The shipping department did precious little. G Sunder Rajan is an environmentalist who joins us from Chennai. Mr. Sunder Rajan, what have you noticed in Chennai? Why isn't the government reacting at all? Now that they are done with their power struggle and they actually have to get back to work, we couldn't even get anybody from the Tamil Nadu state government to even respond to this story today.
See, actually, for any oil spill that has to happen in the country, we have a very well laid out disaster preparedness plan. The Chief Secretary is the chairperson of that committee for the disaster preparedness, and members of Coast Guard, members of Pollution Control Board, members of Environment Forest, members of the specific ports are members in this committee. But you know what? In our country, you could have food shortage, or you could have water shortage, water scarcity. But we don't have scarcity for rules and acts. But the problem is, who follows these rules? Who takes care of the preparedness of the whole thing? The sad part is, globally, oil spill is not something very new. I mean, this has been happening every day in and day out across some place, somewhere in the world. It is not an asteroid which has come from the outer space and hit the earth, which you did not expect. This happens every day. And there are technologies, including nanotechnologies, all over the globe, and which we have. We have been talking about digital India, clean India, and mighty India. But at the end of the day, it is just a bucket India. And I don't know how the government and the state government, or the Coast Guard, or the police, you can name all these agencies as a different, but they are all part of the government. First, how they allow the volunteers to get there? When we went to see there I could see volunteers cleaning up those areas in their bare hands, not even gloves. Whenever our own volunteers called up, whether to go there or not, we said, please don't go. And you know what? After the accident happened, the tanker or the tanker ship which was having the cargo was not allowed to get into the port for 2 days. The methodologies, the procedures.
Well, let me tell you something, G Sunder Rajan. Let me tell you something.
Get inside the port.
Let me tell you something really worrying, G Sunder Rajan, about what's happening in the state of Tamil Nadu right now. When we called the government of Tamil Nadu for a response, this is the response we got. That was a different chief minister. This is a different chief minister. we cannot now respond to the decision that chief minister took because of his competency or the lack of it. We currently support this chief minister, so we will not take any responsibility. Now, we are talking about long-term effects for the next 15 years. Which chief minister will take responsibility for these fishermen over the next 15 years? That child with a rash on his back, 15 years from now, if he develops a disease, who will take responsibility? And that is the problem with Chennai, and that is the problem with Tamil Nadu government. Nobody is willing to take responsibility for something that happened a month ago.
So I think the solution to that, of course, is a class action suit by the affected victims, and the owner of the ships should be held responsible and made to compensate them for the loss.
All these are...
And heavy exemplary damages should be imposed on the ship owners.
It's an administrative failure. It's not, nobody has done anything at all. It was, if I understand, this is the 75th oil spill that we have seen. Yet it is obvious that it is totally disregarded, badly managed, and every item in the rule book was being flouted.
Dr. Sanjeev Mehta, do these people right now who are currently having these short-term reactions, do they run the risk of leukemia, yes or no?
Oh yes, of course they do. They have the short-term problem, they have the long-term problem, and they're eating that fish which is probably infected, which also should be stopped. I think we're talking about the environment, we should also talk about the fish.
So the more they go out to fish, the more they sell that fish, the more they eat that fish, they're just adding to the toxicity that's what's already in their system. Right. I understand that Dr. Sumanth C Raman joins us on the phone line right now. He's a political commentator. Sumanth C Raman, thank you for joining us. There is now a report from a fact-finding committee that very clearly says that there's a severe impact on the people who got into the water to clean up that sludge. They were sent in by the state government on without any sort of gear, and now we cannot find the state government to take any sort of responsibility because they say the chief minister has changed, so it was not our responsibility. There's something horribly wrong with the state of Tamil Nadu and how it's being run, to Sumanth C Raman.
No, I think that you should have asked the person who said the chief minister has changed why the rest of the ministers have not changed. All these people who are now ministers were ministers in the government of the previous chief minister. So, why they could have objected to it and they could have resigned their posts. No? There is no problem with that. If they had said, look, we should not be allowing these volunteers to get into the, into the cleanup operations like this, and we object strongly to the decision of the chief minister and we resign. Why didn't they do that? So I think it's a silly gesture on their part. I don't know if they said it, but if they have said that, saying that it's up to the previous chief minister, the fisheries minister remains the same. He also was actively involved in some of these relief measures or whatever that they were attempting to do at that point of time. So I think that it's absurd to say that just because one man has changed the response of the government cannot be held responsible for that. Having said that, right on day one, I don't know if you've been following, but on many channels we did say that this was not the right way of going about it. All the experts said it, that this was not the most ideal way of clearing the oil spill. But somehow the government it took at least 2 to 3 days before they sort of woke up to the fact that you shouldn't really be having volunteers, some of them with bare hands, clearing the oil spill using buckets. I think that was something which probably should have dawned on them a lot earlier. But then government response, and I don't mean Tamil Nadu government, most governments' response to many emergency situations, does leave a lot to be desired, and they don't follow the manuals that are there. There is no clear chain of command. There are multiple agencies which coordinate, leading to...
while I'll accept, Sumanth C Raman, that a lot of government agencies failed in this particular case, and I would like to hold the central government union Environment Ministry to task as well. But the truth is that several things have, several stories coming out of Chennai, particularly in Tamil Nadu, largely over the last couple of days, have shown us that the law and order system is completely absent. The cases of murders of children, which I'm sure you are well aware of. The fact that this fact-finding report was released yesterday and still nobody from the government has responded, nobody from the state government has even bothered to even give a press conference or any sort of response, that these fisher folk whom we've reached out to tell us that they've received absolutely no aid from government at all. It shows that the government is absent here from public life.
No, I don't think that's fair. That's a fair assessment. I don't think the law and order situation is any better or any worse than most other metropolitan cities in India. So I don't think it's really fair to single out Chennai and say that some children have been murdered and therefore the city's state law and order situation is bad. That is not a right and that's not a fair approach. Having said that, I agree that if there has been a report which has been given by a fact-finding committee, then obviously the state government must have constituted an appropriate response by now. They should have held a press conference. They should have come out with what are the set of measures that they are going to take going forward to try and deal with some of those people who are still at risk. So I think that should have been done. But I don't think that, because one or two children were murdered, that makes the law and order situation in the state. Look, throughout, you have the situation of what are called, murders which are being happening with either family members murdering others or neighbors or people known to these groups. So it's very, very difficult to stop that. You can't blame the dog for...
Sir, sorry to take a different view. One murder is murder too many. How can we even say...
Murder too many? Tell me
sorry.
which state doesn't have murder. Ask him to name whichever state where there are no murders at all.
I mean, they're all... We can't support that, no?
Sir, and you have families where husband is hacking the wife and wife is throwing a stone on the husband's head and killing, and the neighbor is strangling the child. You can't expect the police to do anything, and that is not a law and order problem. Law and order situation is when strangers are going into people's houses, breaking in and killing people. The government cannot be in each and every person's house and police what is going on. There is a problem with the social tension. There is a problem with how these issues are handled. I accept that. But clearly you can't blame a government. No government. I mean, I'm not...
The fear of law is missing. The fear of law is missing. I mean, I'm not saying... I'm not saying...
Post-impact assessment. Is there a post-impact assessment?
Has there been a post-impact? No, there hasn't. I mean, we've got this report that's come out. And I want to go to G Sunder Rajan. G Sunder Rajan, you are an environmentalist functioning out of Chennai. I want you to share with us how willing and forthcoming has the government been so far as this particular case of the oil spill is concerned, as far as the case of the health and the welfare of the people of Chennai are concerned, even the toxicity of the fish that we're talking about. How forthcoming has the government been?
Yeah. No, I mean, like I understand, I completely agree that the state government did not do what it should have done. I completely agree with that. But the issue here is, what was the central government doing? Where is your MOEF, Ministry of Environment and Forest? Where is your Central Pollution Control Board? Where is your National Disaster Management Authority? What did the Coast Guard do? The Ennur port itself comes under the central government. It's not part of the state government. I mean, you can keep pointing fingers at the state of Tamil Nadu government. We also do that, no doubt about that. They have failed in their duty miserably. But the larger question is, where is your central government doing? What was your MOEF doing? Where are your experts? No expert from any national institutes have come today to study this effect. So, I mean, it is very easy to pinpoint the state government. I don't deny that. But the central government has completely, miserably let its citizens of Tamil Nadu badly. Let the citizens of Tamil Nadu, very badly. So, it's basically the entire systemic failure of this country, which is just showcasing its real colors in the Ennur oil spill. It is not just the Tamil Nadu government, it's the Tamil Nadu government, Central Pollution Control Board, Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board, Ennur Port, Coast Guard, and all the national institutes, research institutes. Everybody has failed in their job. But the ultimate sufferer is the people of Tamil Nadu and the fisher folks who live on the coastline of Tamil Nadu.
Right. Stalin, I want to point out here, we found out that the government even organized at that point a seafood festival to prove to the citizens of Chennai that the fish is safe to eat and they should all be eating it.
This is preposterous. They should be hauled up for criminal prosecution should be initiated for endangering people's lives willfully. It is absolute. Which scientist has certified that the food is right? It's wrong. It's completely wrong, and they should be penalized for this. See, governments may come and governments may go, but the fact is that the Central Pollution Control Board officials and the State Pollution Control Board officials did nothing. Their heads should roll. They should be criminally prosecuted for allowing this to happen. Even now, people are going out to fish. This is nothing but you're just acting like a third world country, not even a third world, a banana republic who has no clue of what we are doing.
I'll tell you one thing more that should shock you. The fisheries minister of Tamil Nadu visited one of the fishing villages, had someone fry up a piece of fish, ate it in front of everybody to prove that he is not afraid, to prove that the fish is safe to eat, and to encourage other people to eat it as well. This is the kind of drama that Tamil Nadu likes to play out without considering the implications of their actions.
These people need to pay the price for this stupidity, what they are doing. They need to be criminally prosecuted. That's the only way forward. This drama, political drama, politicians who have no clue about the environment are sitting there and playing with the lives of the people. So the accountability and should be pinpointed to them also. They can't run away from this. Dr.
Mehta, what is the risk right now for anybody eating the fish that's coming out of the beaches of Chennai?
Oh, the risk is huge. I mean, I don't have the exact number on that, but you know, anybody who's eating that fish, breathing that air, having the water from that area, all of it is at risk. And we've been saying this on this channel that they should be evacuated. The fishing should stop. They should not eat. What worries me is, Faye, that over 10 days now or more, I do not see a future plan. I mean, this is all that they've done is stop people from going there. But is there no plan? And where do we go from here? I don't see anything to prevent the next one, and I don't see how these people are going to be followed up. There's no task force. I want a pediatrician there, a pediatrician who will follow these children. There's no pulmonologist. Nobody's done lung function on these people. Nobody's looking at the skin. I mean, we've been talking and shouting ourselves hoarse. There's a health problem. There's no health task force. What's going on?
And we've been shouting ourselves hoarse for a while now. Dr. Amaran, there is an Amma clinic. An Amma canteen got turned into an Amma clinic at the time of the cleanup. How effective was that clinic?
Okay. It was good to know there was a health camp which was located in a locality nearby, and also in future we can use those canteens or other community buildings for health camps.
Was the canteen? What sort of equipment
did it have?
Coming to the
hazardous things of effects of the fish, it depends upon the bioaccumulation of the. Sorry.
How effective was the health camp? What equipment did it have? How many doctors were there? Was there a pulmonologist present? Was there a pediatrician present? Were they doing the right checkups that were needed?
We don't have any exact numbers of medical team there. But we got to know that there were a rotation of doctors from Madras Medical College and Government Hospital and Stanley Medical College, and also from Thiruvuttur GH, and also the zonal health officer were there. We are not sure that there was a pulmonologist over there. And also the medications were antibiotics and zinc ointments for the eyes. And also they said that they had TT injections to meet the first aid to be given to the healthcare, cleanup workers.
It's a total.
So, Dr. Sanjeev Mehta, ointments and antibiotics for carcinogenics.
It's a little too little to even talk about. Too little, too late. It's inadequate. It's all done. I'm looking at the future. This was terrible.
Sumanth C Raman. Sumanth C Raman now joins us on the show. You've heard you've heard the conversation so far. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that there have been lacunae. I don't think that there's anybody there who can totally defend the government and say that there has been no lacunae.
Why?
There has been, there's been a lot of finger pointing, and I don't think it's fair to single out the state government alone. The central government is equally culpable because the fundamental issue of them delaying the news about this spill, the port authority delaying the news about this spill, I think that was one of the major reasons for what happened, the spill becoming as big as it actually did. So I think that, if we can learn lessons from it, whatever has happened has happened. Now we can point fingers, we can hold people accountable. In India, no government servant is ever held accountable, at least that doesn't happen. So I don't expect that in this particular case, we're going to have a dramatic turn of events where we're going to actually prosecute people and we're going to hold people accountable for the damage to the environment.
Wouldn't this be a good time to start?
People aren't even held accountable.
Wouldn't this be a good time to start and hold people accountable, make an example? And I just want to point out the reason why, as a journalist, I'm singling out the state government. I'll tell you why I'm singling out the state government. I do realize that the Port Authority made an error here. I do realize that the people who owned the tankers and the people who were driving the tankers made an error here. There were several errors that were made. But these are the people who were let into the water, some by force, the report tells us, who were sent into the water to clean up without equipment. They were fire tender and fire personnel. They were police personnel who were with the state government. They were fisher folk. They were students. And in some cases, there were some people from the Coast Guard. Now, all of these people were asked to enter the water by the state government. And I'm only focusing on the health risks of the people who went into the water without equipment.
Now,
this was the state government's responsibility.
Coast Guard
the police
did its own
personnel.
operation. So I don't think it's fair to say the Coast Guard was forced to enter by state government.
No. The Coast Guard instantly, the Coast Guard were the only people who had the equipment that was necessary. The fisher folk, the police personnel, the fire personnel, and the municipal workers at 400 rupees a day who were sent into the water without equipment. All of these people are workers and employees, one way or the other, taking instructions from the state government. Sumanth C Raman, these were the ones who were sent out without equipment.
No, I agree. But the point is, we have to go back to the question of whether they would have needed to have been sent out into the water at all.
Exactly.
So if the spill had been reported promptly and the issue had been taken up and the necessary measures had been taken by all concerned. So I think you can't, I mean, the reason today you can point fingers at the state government and say that they should not have sent the people out. But the situation that necessitated sending those people out wrongly was actually caused by the delay which was on the part of the Port Trust authorities in actually giving the intimation about the size and scale of the spill. So you cannot absolve one authority and say that this is all the state government's fault. Obviously they've got no business to send these people out without even knowing what the after effects are. But as in India, these things happen all the time and they need to be stopped. The way to stop them is to hold somebody accountable. Who is the person who actually ordered these people in? We have seen pictures where the state government authorities were actually supervising these operations, where people were holding buckets and trying to pull the, get enough of the oil out of the sea. So we've seen that. I mean, all of us saw pictures of that.
I think you need to understand how this whole structure works. The Coast Guard is an overall charge of the disaster management plan for an oil spill. The Port Authority is supposed to have certain amount of equipment within the port to tackle a certain quantity of oil spill. The collector is in charge of the district management disaster plan, and the collector also has powers to requisition equipment and so on. And in this particular case, the lady collector was at the site supervising these operations, and there was no protective gear in place for the volunteers or the people working there. The fact that they needed boots, they needed gloves, they needed masks was pointed out from day one when this operation commenced. No action was taken to provide any of these people with any of the safety equipment. And day after day, they were working under these inhuman conditions. Now, the solution, of course, is this. The Port Authority is responsible. The Coast Guard is also responsible. The owners of the ship is responsible. And I think they should be made to pay for medical treatment and compensating the people for their loss of livelihood, for the loss of man years of life, because I'm quite sure a lot of people are going to, their lifespan is going to be affected. Benzene, which is one of the products of crude oil, is carcinogenic, and all the people who worked there to clean up the oil have inhaled this benzene. As far as fish is concerned, obviously the fish in that area that has been exposed to the oil is contaminated. It's a question of finding out how far that oil has spread. The Coast Guard has the equipment, they have aircraft, they have access to satellite data. They should have mapped the spread of the oil spill and then declared certain areas as no fishing zone.
Should the fishing be stopped today?
Now, one issue I want to point out, the fisheries minister actually came out with a statement saying the fish is safe to eat. I don't know on what basis he did that.
He not only did that, Sumanth C Raman, he held a seafood festival, and then he ate some of the fish in public view in front of the media persons and the fishermen to prove that, listen, I'm not scared, you should also go ahead and eat it. That man effectively is poisoning his own citizens, and there has to be accountability. There have to be fingers pointed at this point. And this is the kind of situation that requires, I'm sorry, but an American style class action suit where all of these people are represented by one lawyer who drags the government and various government agencies through various courts until they all pay for what they have done, because this is absolutely inhuman. Alex is on the phone line from Chennai. Alex, go ahead.
Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the doctors who conducted the study for this thing, because they only got this news out. So that actually I also volunteered for this. But what my problem is, what is probability of me getting cancer for working for this thing? I'd like to know.
How many days were you in the water, Alex?
Actually, I was there for 2 days.
For 2 days. Did you have any protective gear on?
Actually, I'm not having anything. Like I do wear gloves and a mask, but it's kind of like surgical.
Surgical mask. Okay, okay. Are you having any symptoms
Hello?
right now? Are you experiencing any symptoms, Alex?
Hello?
Alex, are you experiencing any symptoms right now?
No, I am absolutely healthy, no problem. Even during those days, I didn't have anything.
How old are you, Alex?
Hello?
Hello, Alex, this is Dr. Sanjeev Mehta right now, who's sitting next to me, who will answer your question. Dr. Mehta, go ahead.
Alex, what's your age? What's your age?
22.
Okay. I think just to reassure you, the effects are going to be very minor, hopefully. You were there for just 2 days. But I would suggest you please follow up with your doctor and get a blood test done, get a set of tests done, and just follow up very, very regularly.
What kind of doctor should he go and see?
You should go and see a good
What kind of tests do I have to do?
Yes. What kind of tests is he
So I would right now do a simple blood CBC, complete blood count, will tell you all about the how your hemoglobin is working. We would do a lung function test. These are the two bare minimum tests I would do, a urine, and then probably do a more follow-up. Now, I don't have the exact protocol, but I could share it with you about what are the follow-up tests that you would do based on what they're doing in the US.
In fact, we'll get that information, Alex, and one member of my team will call you and give you that information from Dr. Mehta. Mr. D'Souza is also on the phone line from Chennai. Go ahead, you're on the show.
Yes, I am online.
Yes, go ahead, sir. What would you like to say?
I told already that I want to talk to the panel regarding this desalination
Yes, you are on the show, sir. You are talking to the panel. Go ahead.
I would like to tell you that nobody has spoken about this desalination plant.
Yes.
That's what I want to tell you, that nobody in the panel has talked so far about the desalination plant, which is very close to the accident spot. It is within 10 kilometers. Ennore is an island, and desalination plant is just in the island and very close to the port, Ennore port. And this accident happened very close to the port. And the oil spill has gone up to Mahabalipuram, which is about 50 kilometers away, down south. Whereas this desalination plant, which supplies desalinated water to the city,
yes, how safe is the water right now?
Less than 10 kilometers.
Yes, that's a very good point. G Sunder Rajan, has there been any study right now?
Actually, we asked.
Okay, all right, go ahead. Sumanth C Raman, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, we raised that question and we were told that. Again, these are all, see, you have to at some point sort of trust the government on its word. Repeatedly, this question was asked to the government saying, are the desalination plants safe? And we were told that the desalination plants were safe and that some, some kind of protective equipment or something, or some, buoys or something had been put in the sea, which sort of prevented the oil spill from going into that direction and so on. Now, I mean, at some point, we are not technical people, we are not experts, so at some point you have to believe what the government says. But, if they have goofed on this, as it seems to have, with the volunteers being allowed in without the appropriate protective equipment and so on, it's quite possible that there may have been gaps in what they have sort of stated with respect to the desalination plants as well.
Right. G Sunder Rajan, has the government done anything of this sort? Have you tested it? Have you tested the water that's being supplied out of that salination plant?
No, nothing has been done on that account. See, in fact, we have been asking the government to come out openly on what is the, to which extent the oil has spilled out, what is the range, how far it has gone. There is no satellite image, no data which has been released by the government. On the other hand, the fishermen are claiming that since they are going to deep sea fishing, people don't have to worry really about the fish getting contaminated. But actually, nobody knows how far the oil contamination has gone, and it is not a wall, it is not a room, where you can keep the oil spill within certain limits. It is it depends on the ocean currents, ocean waves. So nobody can know how far the oil has traveled. Oil spill has traveled, and now we have come to know that it is all completely very heavy hydrocarbons. They are not lighter hydrocarbons, which means it will stay in the water, it will stay in the ocean bed, it will stay in the shore for decades together. So they have not come out openly, they have been just making statements that, fish is safe and the desalination plant is not affected in both the places, but they have not come out with actual scientific data. The belief on the government or the dependability on the government will be on the public only if the government comes out with data.
If the government gives some reason for the public to trust them.
Scientific data.
Yeah,
but none has happened here. Nothing has happened here.
And I want to read out, Sumanth C Raman, the first page of this report says there has been and continues to be a lack of accurate, reliable information being put out by all authorities on the quantum and the nature of the material that is spilled. And this has hindered cleanup operations and limited our understanding to the health and the environment effects of this spill. And that's where we are right now. Debi Goenka,
I think that's a big problem that has been persistent. The problem has been that nobody has ever told us whether it is, and primarily we have to attribute this to the port authorities. They have not at any point, come out and said so much of oil has come out into the ocean. Look, it is possible to have calculated simply because the version which they put out was this was not the cargo which was actually leaking. This was the engine oil from the tanker which was leaking. So they would have known whether it was cargo, whether it was engine oil, how much of oil was the tanker carrying. And a few simple, top of the head calculations would have told you how many liters are likely to have been leaked or how many tons would have likely to have been leaked. Now this has not been communicated. The state government has no mechanism to calculate this. The state government can be accused of a whole lot of other goof-ups on the way they handle this whole thing. But as far as the quantum of oil that leaked, it should have been somebody who had the control of the ship in terms of the owners of the ship, along with the port authority, who should have actually told us, look, so many thousand tons of oil have actually spilled. We never got to know. We just kept getting various versions based on the amount that was actually removed from the ocean, and not actually how much spilled.
See, so while I accept the fact that this was the port authority's responsibility, I'm going to focus on the fact that the state government has screwed up here desperately in various ways. One is that it was not that difficult to find out what was leaking into the water. What is this chemical that's leaking into the water and how dangerous is it? It was not rocket science to look into the manual that is in the collector's office to find out how a leak should be dealt with. To call for student volunteers like the young man who called us right now, who is now afraid at 22 for his life, was absolutely shocking. And we knew that the then Chief Minister put out a call for all proud Chennaites to come and help. And I think this is on his conscience right now, to ask for your municipal workers, for your police workers.
No, I don't think he asked people to come. I'm not sure that Mr. Pannirselvam actually put out a statement asking volunteers to come and clean the mess. I don't think so.
Definitely, the mess starts when the politicians start to meddle. This was a scientific issue, and the scientists and the properly trained agency should have handled it. The moment the politicians come in, then this kind of issues will happen. Actually, what you said is right, Faye, that the blood of this, whatever happens, or the consequences on the health lies solely with the state government, who has asked the people to come out there.
So why didn't the central government tell us how much oil spilled, sir?
Definitely.
They didn't even say that oil spilled.
See, the ground.
They didn't even tell us that.
See, there were two agencies, one from the center, one from the state, which were on the ground. They should have issued a joint statement, which they have not done. The Coast Guard should have issued its statement, and the state government should have come out with its own version of things. But the fact is that despite Magicbricks following up right from day
And
one,
why was the tanker not allowed to come into port?
Definitely.
For more than 24 hours?
These are matters which should be investigated. Right now, the issue is on the health of the citizens, the people who have been threatened due to this spill. And this,
no, but that was needed only because the oil spill was big enough.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely,
the magnitude.
If the vessel had been brought into port.
Correct. What you're saying is correct. The vessel should have been kept away, but it was not done. So this will become an investigation definitely.
They were asking for an undertaking. They were asking for an undertaking to be given by the owner of the vessel. Apparently, that took 24 hours.
So every minute counted. So exactly, a lot of heads need to roll on this.
The vessel into the port immediate would have been more disastrous, perhaps, because we don't know the extent of damage and how it was controlled.
What is the protocol, Ramachandra Menon, when something like this happens?
See, first of all, you have to arrest this spill from the ship, from where it is leaking. You've got to transfer that oil into some other compartment from where it will not come out. Then you bring in the vessel inside. Otherwise, what is flowing out will just continuously flow out. So it could not have been possible to bring the ship inside the port immediately because there was a damage to the ship hull.
In the protocol itself, we do not have a response time fixed. Like how much time is that has to be fixed right now. Okay, this is within an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. That time should be done.
The immediate action that should have been taken was to try and contain the spill and to plug the leak. And whatever oil was there in the tank that was punctured in the collision should have been pumped out into another vessel or into another tank in the same ship or into another tank in another ship.
Yes.
That was just not done for 48 hours.
Well, right now, what is of immediate necessity is for...
Who could have done that? That could have been done by the port authority, or that could have been done by the ship people.
And the Coast Guard.
Not by the state government.
We need a
ship
neutral
people would
investigation.
definitely have taken some action because their lives are also at risk. They would have definitely taken some action. But then it takes time to transfer that oil from one compartment to the other.
But nothing was done. That is the whole point.
At this point of time, we do
But
not know
nothing
the
was
actual
done at all.
We do not know the
Nothing
ground
was
situation,
done,
what
period.
it was. We can only speculate. The ground situation, we need to get those
should have
versions
at
what
least
really
arrested
happened.
the spread of the oil immediately with by laying out these
Right. See, actually, so what we need right now is for, and I'm making this very clear, the state government of Tamil Nadu to set up emergency health camps at every fishing village across the coast where the oil spill took place. They have to be qualified doctors there that are taking a census of everyone who is exposed to the water, including the student volunteers, including the police officers, including innocent bystanders who might have just come to take a look at it. Their names need to be written down. Their symptoms need to be written down. They need to be treated. They need to be tested. And there needs to be a plan for the next 15 years to make sure that these people are looked after. We cannot in any way brush this under the carpet, and we will not brush this under the carpet. This is as bad as what happened in Bhopal. This is the kind of health risk we're talking about. We're talking about cancer. There is no way that we can in any way let anyone brush this under the carpet. The state government here will have to come forward at least, because these are your people. Start making a noise about it. And of course, like rightfully said by this entire panel, the Central Union Ministry of Environment and Shipping is completely responsible for this and cannot in any way absolve itself of its responsibility. We are going to demand answers from both of these authorities, from the Union Ministry of Health, as to why no health advisories were put out at the time when young people from their colleges were going to the beach to clean up. Why wasn't there radio announcements, newspaper announcements, flyers put out, barricades put out saying this is not safe for you? This is not new information. Let me point out to you that research has showed us that people across the world who worked in oil spills, even with full protective gear, all contracted cancer. This is what we're dealing with. We will not let governments take health that lightly. Thanks for watching.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magicbricks Now. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magicbricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/Magicbricks Now.